Hello everyone, this is Deepak Bari. Welcome to this video. In this video we will talk and do some experiment with the static routing. And for this video we will use the Cisco Packet Tracer for our simulation purpose. So if you are using the another simulator rather than the Cisco Packet Tracer, so that is fine. The basic will be the same. So let's get started. So I am using the Cisco Packet Tracer version 8.1. So if you are using the previous version, so that is fine completely. It will also work for that. So this is our Cisco Packet Tracer. I've already made some videos on static routing, and we will do some experiment and learn something new in static routing. So let's get started. So as we have already know about the static routing, so this is not a routing protocol or anything something like that. So static routing, what it means, like we are putting the routing table map in the routing table data manually, and we provide the administrative distance inside it. And however it will work like that, we can say we predefined everything manually. So the basic is same and the formula is also same. So we will discuss something about the formula which we have used in the previous videos. So like what are the network addresses and why we are using the destination network address and the next hop IP address, as well as we will also talk about the exit interfaces. And we'll do something more about new keywords like the permanent keyword and the functionalities of the permanent keyword. So let's drag some routers on our workspace, and we will drag some switches and PCs. So for this experiment purpose, I am using the 2911 series router. So you can choose any one of them, whatever you like there. So let's grab two routers here. So these are the two routers, the router 0 and router 1. So let's place this nicely. Let's have two switches. And let's place the two PCs also there. So if you have previously watched my videos, so you have already understand what would be the next step here. If you don't, so that is completely fine. We will do this things the further step right away. So the second step, that should be the open the router, and this is the router back panel. What we need to do, just switch off the router power button, and we need to add the hardware interface. So let's just drag and drop the HWIC-2T, and let's turn off the switch of the router. So you will have this green button, that means the switch is on and router is booting up, just like that. Let's do the same on the second router. Switch off this device and drag and drop the HWIC-2T. Okay, so this pop-ups the cannot add a module when the power is on. So probably the power is still on, so we have to put it switch off. Let's drag and drop again. Now it's good to go. Let's have check in CLI. So it's decompressing the image again, so that means our router is reloading and rebooting. Okay, fine. Let's close this windows. Now the second and the further step, we can say the cabling. Okay, so we will use the serial cable, as we have already know the router to router we connect using the serial DC and DT terminal using. So let's select the CL0/0/0. And in this part for router 1 we will use the serial 0/0/1. Let's connect it. And router 2 switch we will use the copper straight through cable. So let's connect it. So here's the interface, gigabit Ethernet 0/0, and 2960 port has also the gigabit Ethernet, so we can use the gigabit Ethernet, or you can use the fast Ethernet as well. So for this part we are using the gigabit Ethernet 0/1. For this router also we are using the gigabit Ethernet, and here the gigabit Ethernet 0/1. In case of this one's the switch, we will use the fast Ethernet 0/1, and we will connect with the fast Ethernet 0 with our PC. Let's do the same with the another device. Okay, fine. So we have connected our this scenario. So right now we will do something here about the Cisco Packet Tracer, because we can see the which interface is connected with the which interface, and we will do it like configuring from here. Just go to the options menu and you will find the preferences there, or you can use the shortcut key, the Control R, to get the preferences. And make sure to enable this, the always show port label in logical workspace. This is really a handy stuff, so make sure always check this one. So let me just explain what is this. So when you check this checkbox, so it will just appears all the serial interface, or the whatever the interfaces you are using, it just labels there. So this is good. And these are the font we are not using right now. Let's close this window. So now we can see which interface is connected with which interface, and for this we can visualize and easily can configure in our workspace. It will be great if we take some note about this scenario, so this will be fine to make an objective and complete those objectives as a to-do list. So for making a note here, we are using the default note. The Cisco Packet Tracer allowed us. So this is the option for placing a note, and as we can see, it hints also the press note, and in the bracket it shows the N, the capital letter N, or the N keyword. So when you presses the N button, so it places a note into the workspace. So place a note here by pressing the N keyword. Now we can give a note here. So let's say this is the serial interface and we want to put some IP address here. So let's assign a very easy IP address. And for this interface, it should be 10.2, and this here value should be the 24. Okay, so this interface will assign with 10.2 and this interface will assign the 10.1. And one thing I'd like to clear about the note of Cisco Packet Tracer, it's just a text on the workspace and nothing else. Like you are placing a note, that does not mean you configured it. So you have to configure it in the CLI mode. So the role of note is just to have a brief visualization of scenario or scenario design in Cisco Packet Tracer. So that is all for the note. And one of the most important thing about this interface of the serial interface, whatever the IP address assigned, so it should be the same network. If you make the different networks. So definitely it will not work because it will belong to the another network, and the forwarding network is the work for router, not for any other device. Now let's place another nodes also here. So we will use the gigabit Ethernet this for this router and for this router as well. So let's have a node here. So let's say suppose this IP address will belongs to this, let's say the 20.1 and 24, and for this part not the 10 is already in use, so we will use like 30 or 40 like that. Okay, for the PC interface we will assign different IP address in this one because the already used IP address can be used again because it's already assigned in that network. So let's make it the 20.2 and this will be the 30.2. Okay, just like that. So we put our node here. So let's press the escape key to just removing this node, or you can just press it again to remove the node. Okay, so let's just press the escape key, and now you can select the router and other visual things whatever you are seeing here. Let's place them. Okay, much better. Now the next step is to configure the static routing, and we will see the pros and cons, the configuration what we have done before previously. So let's open the router first, and this took the CLI. Let's drag this CLI here. Now we can see this thing. Okay, so let's start with enable keyword. Then we have to access the configure terminal, and we will assign the IP addresses for each port of this router. Then after that we will give the static routing inside it. So first we have to select the serial interface 0/0/0. To select an interface, give the interface keyword there and give the specific interface what we are using, like serial interface, and the respective slot, port, etc. the numbers. Then hit down the enter key, and you have to assign the IP address here manually. So give the IP address key to set the IP address on a specific port. So if you want to remove a specific IP address from a specific port, so you can use the no keyword. We are not using the no keyword right now. We are just going to assign this IP address on the router interface, right? So let's give the IP address. .10.1 and the default subnet mask. Now hit down the enter key. So our IP address has been assigned to this interface, this serial interface. So how can we check that? Just exit from here and exit from this mode also, and type here the show IP interface brief. And it will just give the list of our interfaces which is available in this router. So these are the interfaces is available in the router, like gigabit Ethernet. So we have the 3 gigabit Ethernet and 2 serial and this one for the virtual. We will talk in the later videos when we will learn about the VLAN in depth. So we have assigned our IP address to this port, the serial 0/0/0. Okay, the method is manual, and status is administratively down, and protocol, there is no protocol inside there. So by default the port is down in its state, so we have to make it up by making some commands. So let's go to the global configuration mode again and select that interface in which we want to change, like interface serial 0/0/0, and to making it power up, so we have to give this command no shutdown, and it will make to interface changed state from down to up. Okay, so but still it is color is red, and because of it does not right now it's a peer connection, so that's why it is in red color. So as well, and as soon as we will configure this router, so it will get the green light. And one thing about this router, it shows the clock symbol, so we have to assign the clock rate here, otherwise this will not work. So let's have the clock rate here, clock rates, and to know what the clock rate and what are the available clock rate here, so just give the shift and question mark here, and we will get the various clock rates here, and we can assign any one of them. So clock rate is nothing but a bit transfer over the network. So let's give the command to set a clock rate, and let's give the clock rate 64000. So this will set the 6400 bit rate in our router interface for the serial interface. Now let's exit from this mode also. And right now we just configured only the serial port, so we have to configure the gigabit Ethernet as well. So before going to further configuration, let's check the interface status by giving this command. So IP interface brief. So brief keyword is important here. If you don't give the brief keyword, it will give all the verbose information which we right now we don't need. So that's why we will use the brief keyword here, and it will show us briefly about this specific interfaces or the attached interfaces or the available interfaces can say for that device in case of router. So serial interface is assigned with this IP address, and still the manual status is down, so we have to up this status as well, as I have said. But you have noticed here it is not the administratively down. Okay, so let's save the current configuration into our NVRAM. So NVRAM is the memory where we store the configuration files. So whenever the router reloads, so it gets from here. So let's say copy running config. So this is the running config file, and it will overwrite to the startup config file, and it will ask the file name. It's already exists, so startup config file it's already exists, so we wanna just overwrite this or not. So if you just hit enter, so it will just overwrite, and we can cancel from there also if we don't want to make changes on this. Okay, so this was only just for the serial interface. So let's come to the next router. We did not configure the gigabit Ethernet, at this time. So let's open the another router. Okay, much better. Give the no keyword, give the enable keyword, then configure terminal. The configure terminal, that means a global configuration mode. A global configuration mode, it's just like a terminal where you can use various different commands related to the router, routing table and its interfaces as well. So we will use the interface command here also. Interface serial 0/0/1. In this part, as we can see, the port label is enabled and we can see the serial interface with the specific slot and port numbers. Now this router will get the 192.168.10.2, this IP address. So we have to assign this IP address here, 192.168.10.2. Now let's put the subnet mask for this IP address. Okay, so we have to administratively up this port also, because it's by default down. So let's exit from here and let's exit from this mode to check our port from this mode. Show IP interface brief, and as you can see, the serial 0/0/1 gets the IP address, but the status of that port is administratively down, which we have to make it up. So let's do that. Configure terminal, then interface serial 0/0/1 and give this command no shutdown to make it up. Now as you can see, as soon as we get this command to our CLI in the router, so both lights have been green, this one and this one. So they build the connection, but they can ping. Okay, so let's exit from this mode and let's exit from this mode also and make a copy. Copy running config to the startup config. Okay, so we have saved the configuration file. So let's ping here, ping 192.168.10.1. So since we did not, what we can say, we did not configure any kind of routing or the routing protocol or static routing yet, but it can be pinged because inside a network with the same network and the same subnet, the devices can ping if they interconnect with each other. So it can, and it should be ping. So the success rate was 100%, as we can see there. So there is no routing protocol needed when you connect peer-to-peer connection. But in case of whenever the IP address is gonna change, or you can say the another network in that scenario, so you have to configure a routing protocol or a static routing, and the static routing is not a routing protocol, so makes sense. Now let's give the IP addresses to other interfaces as well. So we will start with the router 0 and we will have this gigabit Ethernet 0/1 and we'll assign that IP addresses to that interfaces as well. Let's have do that. So the steps will be the same, but the interface will just change. So let's go to the global configuration mode and select the gigabit Ethernet interface, gigabit Ethernet 0/0. So this is our this port. hit down the enter key and give the relevant IP address what we have just took the note. 192.168, it should be 20.1, and the default subnet mask. Okay, that is my mistake. I have to put an address keyword as well there. Okay, now let's hit down the enter key. The IP address has been assigned. Now let's change the state of the port by using the no shutdown keyword. Now as you can see, the gigabit Ethernet has been up, and this Ethernet is also going to up. Okay, fine, let's exit from this mode and also exit from this mode also, and let's check our interface's status and everything else, like show IP interface. What was the next keyword? The brief. Exactly. So both our status has up, and these are the down in status because we are not using these ports, and we don't need to worry about this port for this time because it is not in use. Okay, now let's save our configuration. Copy running config to the startup config. Let's close this window and open the another CLI for the router 1. Okay, let's go to the configure terminal. I'm in the global configuration mode and select the gigabit Ethernet here also. Gigabit Ethernet 0/0, and give the IP address by using the IP address keyword 192.168 and 30.1, and the default subnet mask for /24, and make changes about the port status. Okay, now exit from this mode and exit from this mode and check the interfaces. Show IP interface brief. And let's save this file. Copy running config to startup config. So we won't lose the current configuration when the router will reload or restart. Okay, so just exit from here. Now let's assign this IP address to the PC. Just go to the desktop, this tab, and open the IP configuration and assign that IP address. It should be the 20.2 and the default subnet mask, but in case of default gateway we will use the 192.168 and 20.1, the interface of that router with gigabit Ethernet 0/0. This IP address will belongs to the default gateway. And let's close this window, this as well. Open the another PC and we'll do the same with different IP address. For this case we will use the 30.2 and the default gateway, that should be the 30.1. Okay, as I have just told about the different networks, whenever different network plays in a scenario, so we need a router or just for the routing purposes, and the routing is done by the routing protocol and static routing. by using their routing map in the routing table. So first let's try to ping the first device, the PC0 to PC1, and we will see the result. So let's see that. Go to the PC and go to the command prompt. So give the command here, ping 192.168 and 30.2, and it got reply, and it got also message, the destination host is unreachable. So that means whenever you are sending this ping, so it just returned from this router and it did not get information about this network. So this network is really does not known by this router. So that is the problem. That is why we are gonna using the static routing in this case, because the network is also very small and we can use them. And one thing that can be done by from here, the using the PDU messages. Just use the PDU message, and it got failed. That means our ping request gonna failed here. I'm just clearing this out. So let's configure the router for the static routing. To configure the static routing, we have to switch to the global configuration mode. So give the terminal, configure terminal, and the formula as you already know about that, IP route, and this router, the router 0. For this case, the destination network is 30.0. So remember, we are talking about the network address, right? And we are not talking about the host address. So we will learn about the whatever the network address is, first host, last host, and the subnet or the broadcast kind of things in the later videos. So don't worry about that. So keep remember the network address for the 30 network is 30.0, and since we have to give the subnet mask for the destination host, so it would be the 255.255.255.0, because we put the /24 for this network. Okay, so the next hop IP address for this router C interface would be the next hop IP address. So let's give that IP address here, 192.168.10.0. So let me explain about this command. So IP route is a command to give the static routing table information manually, and it requires a formula like the destination network address and the destination subnet mask. And after that, this IP address we have assigned here, it is the next hop IP address. That means the next hop or the next router interface through which our IP address or the packet will communicate with each other. As you can see, this router is connected using the serial cable to this router and to this interface. So that is obvious, they are physically connected, and they have assigned a specific kind of IP address which belongs to a specific network in the same subnet. So we have to put this IP address as a next hop IP address. So in the previous video we have done so far like that, and we did not got the details about the static routing. So just hit down the enter key, and remember one thing about the permanent keyword. The permanent keyword is a keyword that uses the specific routing table IP address key values, or we can say the routing table information, to prevent from the dropping when this interface goes down. So what actually means about the static routing here? Whenever we configure the static routing in our scenario or in our network, different routers, and we want to connect with using the static routing, and if we connect using the static routing, and in that case, suppose if a router link goes down for any of reason, so that the routing table will be updated automatically and that link will be invalid for that routing table. So that means it will remove that the data for that router or for that the interfaces which was registered earlier for that routing table which was configured for that network on that scenario. So we will use those things on the upcoming videos as well. So I'm not just gonna going too deeply about the permanent keyword, but definitely we will see in the later videos. So let's hit the enter keyword. Okay, this is spelling mistake, so put down the N. Well, let's see. I don't know why this is not working. Maybe the Cisco Packet Tracer doesn't support. Right away, let's check it out. Let's give the question mark. Okay, it requires the metric or the distance. Then okay, so this doesn't support about the permanent keyword here, so we will talk this later, and I'm not gonna give much more time about the permanent keyword, and if needed we will do this stuff in the JNS3. So for now let's move on, and let's exit from here and copy running config to the startup config. Okay, let's open this window for the router 1. Configure terminal, the IP route, and we have to give the IP address for that destination network address. So in case of router 1, the destination address should be the 192.168.20.0. So let's give this one 20.0 and 255.255.255.0. And for this router, the next hop IP address, that should be the interface of router 0, serial interface of router 0. So let's give the IP address 192.168.10.1. Okay, let's check about the permanent keyword, whether it is working here or not. Permanent. No, I'm afraid it's not. Okay, don't worry about that one. Let's hit down the enter key and exit from here and exit from here also, and enable. Wait, we have to save this file, right? So copy running config, excuse me, copy the running config to startup config. So that is all what we need. Let's exit from here also and close this window. Let's check. The first, it should be dropped because about the R, and this also drops. So let's debug this one. Okay, it is still showing the reply from the destination host is not reachable, so we have missed something in the configuration. Let's get back to the another configuration and let's see what we have configured earlier. So this is totally a troubleshooting, so let's get started with that. Show IP, and root. So this will give the summary what we have configured. So we have directly connected the 10 and 20, but doesn't seem like we added about the 30 network here, so that's why it wasn't ping. So we have to configure this network instead of this one. For that, configure terminal, IP root 192.168.30.0. And the next hop address, it would be the same with 10.2. Okay, let's exit from here and show IP root. So as we can see, the 30 network is added here. Let's do the same for this route also. Let's check here. Enable show IP root. So the show IP root is a command, so you can debug your statically routed table, or you can troubleshoot with that. So we have the 10 network and the 30 network, but it doesn't listen about the 20 network. So we have to manually give the 20 network here also. Configure terminal, IP root 192.168.20.0. Okay, and the next hop IP address, that should be the 10.2. Okay, excuse me, it should be the 10.1. Okay, let's exit from here, let's check again. Okay, it got in progress, but the packet was failed because they are, and as you can see the final, we got the successful message here. So if it try to ping to this PC to that PC, so it will definitely will ping. So let's ping there, ping 192.168.30.2. And now we can say that we are getting the reply from that device. Now we have successfully configured our the static routing, and let's close this window, close this Windows 2. Let's save this configuration file, copy running config to startup config. Okay, exit from this mode and close this window. And for this router also we have to save this file. Enable. Okay, copy running config to startup config. Okay, fine. Now let's check again. Let's delete everything from here and pass a PDF message from this PC to this one, or relatively this one from this one. So this all goes success. So I hope I could explain everything about, not the everything we can say, some of the basic thing or the advanced thing about the static routing, since we have done in the previous videos as well, and we did the troubleshooting as well. If you feel you missed something in this video, so you can just pause this video and go back to that point and you can see there. Or if you have any kind of problem or issue, so you can just write down in the below comment box. You can also share your packet tracer file, and you can join me in my Discord server. So thanks for watching this video guys. I hope you could learn something from me, and I've shared this Cisco Packet Tracer file, and you can find out in the below description box. Hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.